Alright, greetings and salutations everybody. This is Rollinwolf. Another episode of Let's Talk Daggerheart Beta 1.5. This is going to be episode 14. We're going to talk about the Duality Dice, Hope and Fear, and player moves for their downtime actions. So let's get this copyright notice taken care of real quick. This product was created using the Daggerheart Press Community Gaming License, the Illuminated Worlds Standard Resource Document, Daggerheart Press LLC, all rights reserved. In particular, we are talking the Beta 1.5 rule set. The finished product is due out in the spring of 2025. Alright, folks, so one of the main mechanics that really makes Daggerheart stand out, in my opinion, is the Duality Dice mechanic and the way that informs how the turns progress, how the fiction changes depending upon these rolls. So whenever you roll your Duality dice, you're going to want to have two distinct D12s, right? They recommend obviously like distinctly different colors, but you could go different patterns. If you wanted to go different insets for the numbers, I suppose that would be acceptable as well, as long as they're distinctive. But like I said, the best course of action is to have two dramatically different colored dice and designate one your hope die and one your fear die. I also recommend, and this is just my personal recommendation, it's not part of the rules by any means, but if you take the same D6s as your Duality dice and reserve your D6 that's the same color, let's say you're using yellow for your hope and purple for your fear, okay? If you save the yellow D6 and you make that only used for your advantage roll, and then if you use the purple D6 for your disadvantage, then that will, in your mind, help you keep what advantage or disadvantage dice you have straight as well. That's just a personal tip from me. Do with that as you will. It's by no means part of the rules or needs to happen that way. So whenever you're needing to make a roll, first off, you want to remember, that we're only making rolls whenever we feel it is impactful to the fiction, impactful to the story that we're trying to tell. If it is something that is in the wheelhouse of the character, something simple, or even something that you're not really sure that a failure in the situation is something that would be interesting, right? Then let the characters do what they're trying to do. This goes back to being a fan of the characters and allowing them to shine as the heroes that they are, even in the beginning. Level 1 is still, you're already a hero. This is the way you should look at it and approach it from the fiction. Are you going to exponentially become stronger and more powerful as the campaign goes through? Yes, of course. But the starting point is already you are a heroic individual. So you're going to, whenever you make a duality roll, you're going to choose a character trait, right? This can be something standard if it's, they're wanting to make an attack with a specific weapon or a spell. Generally, we already know what that's going to be. Other times, there will be room for negotiation. Maybe they're trying to do something that is something that you would see maybe as a finesse roll, right? Maybe they're trying in your mind to hide, be sneaky. Instead, the player maybe proposes that because of the situation, maybe they want to try and use agility or something of that nature. This is room. This is where you can negotiate with your players. Let them express why they feel what they're doing might use a certain trait. either way, once you come to a consensus of what trait will be used, you decide on a difficulty for that check. It could be already something that's there, or something that you need to determine. If you think it's very easy, it should be like around a DC 5. Easy is DC 10. Average difficulty is a DC 15. Hard 20, very hard 25, nearly impossible a 30. So you've got your ranges there, and um, the determination of where that should lie in the DC is something that should be determined before the roll is made, obviously. And also, like I said, take into account that particular character, what they have determined their character should be good at. You can look at their experiences, let that inform you, and try and be fair, and as well serve the fiction, right? Once you got your DC and your trait picked out, you want to establish the stakes of the role with the player. Be clear cut. If it's something that we're trying to answer, right? It will be pretty obvious if it's a standard, like an attack or something like that. They're gonna know the stakes in that situation. But what we're talking about is, okay, you're wanting to, let's say you're trying to charm your way past some guards to get into the chamber beyond, to get some paperwork that will prove some noble is actually working on committing treason and betraying an ally that you have, etc. So you say, okay, so you succeed, you're obviously going to get past the guard. If you fail, the guard is going to not allow you in, for one, and two, he's going to call forth. If you roll with hope, he's just going to push you off. Fail with hope, he'll push you off and not allow you in. If you fail with fear, then not only is he not going to let you in, but he's going to be very suspicious of what you're doing and sound the alarm, basically call for reinforcements. So you've let the character, the player, know what, and it's the player that you're letting know, not the character. But you establish the stakes. Then you determine, is this an advantageous situation or a disadvantageous situation? Apply that dice if it's applicable. The player then would get to state whether they want to spend any hope on like experiences, anything else. They could also, this is the time for them to negotiate if they feel like something, if they disagree with the advantage or disadvantage that you have assigned. But once that is all resolved, they decide what bonuses they're rolling with, any extras, if an ally is helping, that all happens now. Then the roll happens, and you resolve the situation based on the result of the roll. Now, as we know, if the dice on both the hope and the fear are doubles, regardless of whether it's 1 and 1 or 12 and 12, that is a critical success for the player. Not only do they count as a success with hope, they also get to clear a stress, and they should maybe get a little extra with the success that they got as well. How that works out, what the fiction inform it. Then you got, if they beat the DC and it's a success with hope, they get what they wanted from the action. They also get to gain a hope. If they succeed but with fear, they get what they want, but there is a consequence. A lot of times, if the action tracker is out, this will default to basically become a GM turn. Whenever fear is rolled, whether it's a success with fear or a failure, that can trigger a GM move time. So that, and then if the action tracker isn't out, you can then determine what that consequence is. Maybe they get a little stress, maybe you invoke some other GM move, which we'll go over GM moves in a different video. You also can bank the fear if you're not at your max fear. But that is, so that is basically a success with fear. A failure with hope, they don't get what they want, and there is a consequence, but the player still gets to gain a hope, and you decide what kind of consequence happens. If it's a failure with fear, then not only do they not get what they want, but things are going badly. This has really gone wrong in some way. And you decide what emphasis is that, how does that play out? So that is you're basically, you got a success with hope, a success with fear, a failure with hope, and a failure with fear. And then you've got your critical successes. Now, the things that you can do with your hopes and fear. So your hope pool at the beginning of the game is a maximum of 6. So most hope you can ever have at a time. If you've got that much hope, then you're not going to gain any hope as long as you've got your pool filled, or your pool filled. My apologies. So the key is to not be afraid to spend that hope. It is going to be a very liquid commodity, and you should use it as best you see fit. The things that you can do with a hope, you can spend a hope to help an ally. That basically allows you to you describe how you're helping them in the fiction, and then you would roll a d6, and that can become an advantage die for them. If they already have advantage, they would roll that. They only get to take one of these. And if multiple people are helping, they would each spend a hope, and they would each roll, but whichever of those 6-siders is the best, or the one that the player wants to take, that would be the one that they would take. You can spend a hope to utilize one of your experiences on a roll. If multiple experiences apply, you can spend multiple hope to add each of those experiences. You can also activate a hope feature. Each class has a hope feature that costs 3 hope. There are also some other things. Some abilities may require a cost of a hope. Some spells may require a cost of a hope, although I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. I'm just kind of covering my bases in general. There may be other things that you individually can spend hope on. And then when we're talking about fear, as the GM, your max pool on fear is 7. So just like players need to use their fear, you should be using your fear as the fiction dictates as well, to bring those moments to whenever you've got a big pool of fear, don't be afraid to spend a little bit here and there to make the situation more tense. If the fiction dictates a good point to use it, or if a player gives you a golden opportunity to use some fear, do so. Serve the fiction. That's what we're here for. So what all can you do when you spend a fear? You can interrupt the players whenever the action tracker is out. If they're just all rolling hot and they're succeeding with hope, and you feel like it's been a little long and it's time to take an action, or the fiction dictates something happens and you want to jump in there, it's a good point to spend a fear to interrupt what's going on. You can spend a fear to add 2 tokens to the action tracker. If you don't have much fear on if you don't have many tokens on your action tracker, but you've got a bunch of fear built up, that's a good opportunity to be able to spend a little bit of that fear, get more tokens onto the board, so you can let more of your adversaries go, or take environmental actions, whatever you want to do with those. You can use an adversary's fear feature by spending fear, as well as some environments will have fear features as well. You can also, in reverse, if you've got a whole bunch of tokens on the action tracker, you can take away 2 of those tokens to gain a fear as well. So you can, if you need fear to be able to do, take some sort of fear features or something like that, you can always remove those tokens from the action tracker to do that as well. I think that's a good covering of hope and fear. Also, whenever you are describing those failures, or especially when you're dealing with failures, try not to make, unless you're playing a game specifically, or somebody's playing a character specifically that is a comedy relief character, or someone who, as part of their character, is being inept or not good at things. You shouldn't. Whenever there is failures, don't make it like, oh, this character really flubbed up. You can always describe how the character is still heroic and doing their thing, but maybe the adversary parries at the last second. Make it heroic for them. Make their characters shine even when they're failing, by allowing your descriptions to be how the world has stopped you, or your adversary has stopped you, or you're not succeeding not because of you goofing up and looking like a fool. It's other factors in the world and an environment that are more impactful against your character. Now, like I said, some games maybe are going to be more whimsical or goofy or silly, and it's totally fine to have your characters look ridiculous or unskilled. But for most heroic campaigns, you're going to want to try and let those failures be not at the don't let them fall at the foot of the hero as being inept or just bad, or really, like, oh, you really goofed up, you just stepped right in that bucket and now you're clonking around. Why have that and make him look bad if that's not the kind of tale you're telling? You'll know the moments whenever and you'll know the group too. Some like I said, some games will feel much more prepared for that kind of failures, or mixing them in here and there is not necessarily a bad thing. Those work a lot better whenever you're playing a more lighthearted style of campaign. And there will be plenty, I'm sure there's plenty of people who want to play that style. And that's a perfectly acceptable and reasonable style to play. It can be a lot of fun. But if you're playing a highly dramatic game, very epic, very meaningful, having those moments where it looks like really just the player's character was a fool, or tripped and clumsily, knocked over a whole table of for a feast or something like that. It's really one of those things that you'll know how to approach it. But let's go ahead and move on to our downtime actions and what you can do in downtime. So in Daggerheart, you can take 3 short rests before you need to take a long rest. A short rest is basically roughly an hour of time. Whenever your group decides to take a short rest, one, they can swap out any number of the domain cards in their loadout for domain cards in their vault whenever you get to the point where you got enough cards. And then you get to choose any 2 options from below. You can take the same action twice. The GM also gains a fear during a short rest and can tick a long-term countdown as well if they so desire. Players get to tend to wounds, and you get 2 of these. So you can tend to wounds, describe how you temporarily patch yourself up and clear a D4 hit points. You can use this to do either to yourself or to an ally. Clear stress, describe how you blow off steam or pull yourself together to clear 1d4 stress. You can repair your armor, describe how you spend some time quickly repairing your armor, clear 1d4 used armor slots. You can choose this to do this to an ally's armor instead, and then you can also choose to prepare. Describe how you're preparing for the next day's adventures or the continuing adventures for the day. You then get to gain a hope. If you prepare with 1 or more of your fellow members of your party, you each get to take 2 hope instead. Now, and that's for a short rest, basically an hour of in-game time, and you get to choose 2 of those actions. For the long rest, each player may swap any number of domain cards in their loadout or domain cards in their vault, and you once again get to choose 2 options from the below list. You can repeat the same action twice if you'd like to. GM gets to gain 2 fear during a long rest and can may tick a long-term countdown twice. So they get to so you get to tend to all wounds, describe basically how you patch yourself up and remove all of your marked hit points. You can choose to do this on an ally instead. You can clear all of your stress. You can repair all of your armor. You can prepare, describe how you are preparing for the next day's adventures, then gain a hope. If you and at least 1 or more of your fellow party choose to prepare together, you can each gain 2 hope. Excuse me. You can each gain 2 hope instead. Or you can choose to work on a project. You can establish or continue work on a project. GM might ask for a roll to determine how much to take down on the completion track. So that is something that, and we'll get into projects and things like that in its own video as well. But that's basically your game mechanic for Hope and Fear, which also, as you know, there's no initiative in Daggerheart. So how play goes back and forth between the player and the GM and the other players is through hope and fear. Whenever you succeed with hope, it stays in the player's court. Either that player could continue to take another action, or it could pass to another player. If they roll a success with fear, you have the opportunity to interrupt, and also on any failure, you have the opportunity to step in and do something as well as the GM. So that's how initiative, there is no initiative roll. It dynamically follows the fiction, allows the group to decide how to go forward with the action tracker in play. You can keep an eye as a GM and see who's got a lot of actions on the board. If you notice somebody doesn't have actions on the board or significantly less, you can attempt to shine the spotlight onto that character, make sure you check in with them, and make sure that they don't have things that they would also like to be doing. But that is, I think that's the basics of that. Covers Hope and Fear pretty well, covers the downtime actions for players. I think we'll be back with our next video, which is going to be GM principles and best practices. For all you people planning on GMing out there. We'll catch you guys here in a little bit. Hopefully everyone is doing good. Be kind to everyone. Shine a little light into the world. I know a lot of people could use it today. Very contentious election. We will catch you guys next time. And if you are interested in playing with me, check out Start Playing. I've got 4 session zeros up, ready and waiting for players. We're going to do the whole ball of wax on session 0. We'll be determining our campaign. getting characters made and jumping into a great saga, hopefully. And I'm really excited to get these things rolling, and get to GM in some Daggerheart, and would love to see y'all sitting at a table with me. We'll be back next time with those GM principles and best practices. For now, this is Rollinwolf signing off.